So now you understand the traps of job hopping, degree hopping, and sort of, being indecisive about your future, and all the traps that people fall into in their 20s and 30s when they're trying to find their career and all that. Now you know how to avoid those traps. If you don't, go back and watch your previous video in the series. Make sure you watch everything in order so that you know exactly what we're going to talk about next. Now we're going to talk about how to deal with all those petty little problems in your life using the 80-20 rule and the 4 quadrants that I'm going to explain to you. So I'll see you on this video. So now let's get into the 80-20 rule and how to deal with lower level problems. Right? So this is absolutely crucial if you want to overcome your quarter life crisis and master your quarter life and your life, because without this, it's going to be very hard to overcome your quarter life crisis, and you have to do these things in order to move on to the next point. What we're going to cover? We're going to cover how lower level problems stunt your growth, how to use the 4 quadrants to sort out your problems, the 4 quadrants of Stephen Covey that I'm going to explain to you, how to say no to meaningless problems. We're going to cover the 80-20 rule in detail, and we're going to cover how to deal with chaos and mess building up around you. How lower level problems stunt your growth, right? So first, what are lower level problems? If you look at there's this developmental psychology model created by Abraham Maslow that created this pyramid called the pyramid of needs. You might be familiar with it, most of you, or maybe not. And basically, the lower level problems in your life are the problems that are, keeping you stuck from moving up. So for example, if you want to find your purpose in life, a lower level problem that's preventing you from achieving that is that you need to put food on your plate. So those are sort of like physiological needs. Or you need to find love, a partner, because you feel lonely. That's a love and self-esteem need. Or, you need to feel safe because you live in a dangerous neighborhood. That's a safety need, right? So all of these needs, if you don't address these needs and you let them build up, it's gonna stop you from achieving the self-actualization, the purpose and contribution and sense of fulfillment, the need that you get when you're higher on the pyramid. Your purpose really is a top need. It's quite high up, right? And people who, are in a quarter life crisis, usually they reach that point because, they already feel safe, right? They have a family, right, that supports them. They have some friends. They're not the best friends, but they have friends, right? So, they already have that in place. Maybe they have a good job even, or they study at something that, maybe they at least somewhat enjoy. But they reach this point when they're just not satisfied. And that's when you get to the purpose need. And this is when the course will be most useful to you, when you already have those lower needs sort of met. They don't have to be 100% met. But if you don't deal with the lower problems, it's going to take up your mental RAM and focus. Because how can you think about new creative ideas if you don't even have a roof over your head and you're worried that, it's going to rain on your head and you can't sleep because there's rain, right? And you live on the streets. It's going to be very hard to start that new business, start that new venture, or, even go to school if you don't even have money to go to school, if that's what you need to do, right? And you always revert back to your lowest need in times of stress, right? So for example, me, at some point I was working on Nameless, a few years ago, and I was single, and being single was quite, while I could work on Nameless, it was more difficult because I was always thinking, yeah, I'm kind of lonely. I want a girlfriend. I want to meet someone. And I always had this need in the back of my mind. And then I actually, I had to spend half of my time working on Nameless and half of the time, going out socializing and meeting people because I felt lonely. But now that I have a girlfriend, now that I've met this lower need, now I can work on my business pretty much full on without a break. And this is great because then I'm not thinking about it. So, I can spend like 8 hours working on this course today, and man, it feels great. And I feel like I'm at the peak of my performance. I'm in flow, and it's the best feeling in the world because I don't need to worry about these lower things. I don't worry about a roof over my head. Look, there's a roof. There's even pretty lights to light me. I have the food on my plate. I'm not rich right now. I might be rich after I release this course. I don't know, but I just have, I have plenty of money to live. So I have all these things set up in my life to be happy. So for me, I don't revert back because I have these needs met, right? But for example, if I were to, I don't know, something happens to my girlfriend and I don't know, she she dies or something, and now I'm left alone again, then I'd feel lonely again, and now I have to fill this need somehow, right? So that's just to sort of give you an example. So the difficult truth, you have to understand this, the difficult truth is that if you are struggling financially, in relationships, physically in terms of your health, you need to address these needs before you continue the course, or you're going to have a really hard time with this program. That's a hard truth. And you don't need, by the way, you don't need to resolve 100% of them, right? You don't have to be 100% rich, and you just have to reach a point of non-issue where the money, yes, maybe it's a bit of a worry, but you don't constantly think about it, right? You don't constantly think about, meeting a girl or meeting a guy to be your boyfriend or girlfriend. If you're thinking about these things, then it's gonna be really hard to find your purpose. And I have a story for you. One of a coaching clients I spoke to, well, we didn't actually start a coaching program, but on the free consultation, I asked her, so what do you need help with? And she was saying, well, I live in this really dangerous neighborhood, and I'm worried about getting robbed, and my dad is in prison and I can barely eat. Like, whoa, okay. First of all, there's nothing I can do to help. Hiring a life coach right now is probably the least of your concerns. You should probably try to go to school, move out, get a job if you don't have one, if you can barely eat. And call the fucking police. If you're afraid of getting robbed, call the police. The police probably can help you better than I. And those lower level needs, unfortunately, I'm not going to be the person that's going to help you for that. So you have to figure this out. And there's another story of a guy who reached out to me and he needed my help, he said. And I said, okay, well, how can I help you? And then he was explaining how he was homeless, living in his car. And I had to say no to coaching him because I knew, like, well, dude, you're homeless. You can barely afford anything. And there's not much I can do to help. You just got to get a job and, just get your living, into place. And it was kind of a hard pill for him to swallow, but, it had to be done. There's nothing else I could have done for him, right? So that's something you need to deal with. But for the rest of us who are ready to change, if you have at least, it's not perfect, you don't have a girlfriend yet, but, you don't obsess over it, you can at least sort of think clearly and think about what you want to do with your life. Yes, you don't have the best friends, but you have friends, okay, it's at least somehow managed, then you can move to the next step, right? So first, how do you manage problems in your life as they arise? First, you analyze all the problems in your life, right? Look at all the problems. Okay, I need to pay rent. I need to do this. Okay, I need to find my purpose, right? I need also to work out. I want to lose weight. I want to make money. I want to become financially free. Whatever, all of these goals that you have, all the problems that you have, okay? Put them into 4 quadrants, right? Now I'm going to put a picture here, right? So this is Stephen Covey's 4 quadrants, taken from his book, Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first quadrant is what is called the important and non-urgent, right? The second is important, urgent. Third is unimportant, urgent, and unimportant, non-urgent. So let me explain each of them. So the important, non-urgent, what is that? Usually the important and non-urgent tasks are really the most important. And those are the ones that we sort of put aside, and they are the hardest to do because why? They're not urgent. You don't have to do them now, right? So for example, shooting this course for me is not really something urgent. I could continue doing YouTube videos online and, whatever, keep working on my part-time job that I'm probably gonna drop out, soon. This is hard to do because you don't have any pressure to do it, right? And following your passion, following your purpose, doing your art, those are things that are important but non-urgent, right? Doing your creative work, writing that novel, writing that song, those are things that are important, your life purpose, right? So this is the main thing you want to focus on. The next quadrant is what is called the important and urgent things, right? A lot of people are stuck there, right? So this is like, paying your rent. This is important and this is urgent. Groceries, this is important, this is urgent, especially if you're hungry and you need to eat, right? Doing your homework, right? Medical appointments, those are important and those are urgent. And this sort of something you want to be aware of, you want to get rid of, do them as soon as you can, so you can move up to the important, non-urgent, more creative aspect of your life, right? The third quadrant is the unimportant and urgent. This is sort of where a lot of people pleasers fall into, right? So those are things that are sort of, they're not important. They're really not important. So maybe your friend asks you a favor right now. Hey, I need your help right now. Like, I really need your help right now. Can you help me to do this thing? Or your parents that ask you to do things, right? So for example, my parents, when I lived with them, they'd always tell me, hey, I need you to do the groceries right now. I need your help to take the bags, put in the kitchen, whatever. And they always ask me when I was busy doing something, important, non-urgent, in my quadrant. And they wanted me to stop everything I was doing to help them. So that's sort of an example of what's unimportant, but that's put sort of on an urgent timeline. And, answering the phone is an example. I never fucking answered my phone. And when people, I used to give my phone number and people called me, because they wanted to get coaching with me, I never answered because it was not important, probably, and it was maybe just a fan wanted to talk to you. It was just completely unimportant, irrelevant, so I just cut it out, right? Another funny example, spilled coffee on the floor. That's unimportant and urgent. You gotta take care of it now, or it's gonna become a problem. So yes, these tasks, what you want to do is you either want to delegate them, or you just don't want to fucking do them. You just ignore them and you allow some chaos to happen here, right? That's something you can do. The fourth quadrant is something you want to completely eliminate. It's called the unimportant, non-urgent, right? So anything that's trash, something to do for fun, or, when everything else is done, yes, okay, you can do it if it's something for fun. So what's an important and non-urgent? Setting a pretty desktop background at work, maybe, window shopping for a new camera, if you're not actually need a camera or a shiny object, replying to emails at the office, about, whatever social fun activities. I remember when I worked at my call center job, there's always be these emails like, article of the week, COVID is doing well, this is some random shit, do this fundraiser thing, it's completely unimportant, non-urgent. You're right, those are things that you kind of want to put away. Social media, of course, unimportant, non-urgent. You don't need to check your freaking Facebook, let's face it, it's useless. Playing video games, also unimportant, non-urgent. Those are things that, if you keep these in your life, if most of your life is unimportant, non-urgent, and unimportant, urgent things, no wonder why you feel miserable and you feel like shit, right? So what I want you to do is, after this video, you're gonna take, put a sheet of paper, you're gonna do 4 quadrants like this, okay? And you're going to write down, what is important, non-urgent, do every quadrant, and then you take sort of an inventory of these things and look at what are the things you can eliminate, what are the things you can delegate, or ask someone else to do, or just ignore it, and what are the things you want to focus on, right? What are the things you have to do right now so that you free them up so you can focus on what's important to you. So, from all of these, you analyze all the problems and you determine which problems to address and which ones to let go of, right? So, for example, me, I have sort of a messy house, and I leave it I try to be as clean as I can, but, I leave it messy to some extent. Why? Because cleaning the house is important, but it's not urgent. And is it urgent? Kind of, not really urgent, right? So, for me, at least, it works for me. It might not work for you. So for me, if I clean the house to a bare minimum so that it's not too messy, and then I focus the rest of my time on working on Nameless, for example. Another thing that I did is, I had too many friends right after college or in college. I had like 50 plus friends, and I, trying to keep up with them is just a hassle. And that's sort of a unimportant, non-urgent thing. And instead of having 50 plus friends, because I realized it was too time consuming and sometimes toxic to some extent, I cut it down to 10 to 15 close friends, or even less. I pretty much hang out with only like 4 or 5 people now. I I cut them down to non-toxic, growth promoting friends that help you grow. And these friends became sort of my important friends, and all the unimportant, non-urgent friends, they had to go, which is what I did. For example, like another way I dealt with a lower level problem, which was like my finances. I just, when I wanted to move out, I was quite low on finances, and I just realized, okay, I'm going to cut down and I'm going to move into this curtain room. I call it curtain room because it's not an actual room. You probably saw photos of it. I'll put a photo now if I remember to do it. But I live in this shitty apartment just so I can, move to something better, right? Another problem is, your parents' pressure to continue in school, right? For example, that's something unimportant and urgent that they put on you, like, oh, you have to go to school, become this, and you have to say no to that, right? That's something you can just say no to, right? If it's not important, you just say no to that, as simple as that. And you have to say no mercilessly. Don't be afraid to cut away old friends. Don't be afraid to sacrifice things, because to make your life happen, to make your life purpose happen, be willing to sacrifice 80% of your things that don't fucking matter. And after you sacrifice the 80% of things, in the 20%, even in that, you'll find things to sacrifice. And the more you do that, the more focused you'll be on your purpose. Which brings me to the 80-20 rule. What is the 80-20 rule? The 80-20 rule is basically, it sums up that 20% of the things are responsible for 80% of the effects. 20% of the causes create 80% of the effect. So for example, 80% of the traffic is on 20% of the road. 20% of the laundry is what you wear 80% of the time, right? 20% of the plates in your cupboard you use 80% of the time. You probably always use the same mug, always use the same cup, whatever, and the rest you don't use, right? 20% of your friends give you 80% of your happiness. And 20% of the bad friends give you 80% of your misery. From this here, you have to understand only 20% of the things in your life probably really matter, and the rest doesn't really matter as much. Realize that when you do this triage thing, when you do sort of you remove all the things that don't matter, chaos and the mess is normal, right? Having chaos is normal. Life is about spinning plates. So, yes, you focus on your purpose, but once in a while you have to focus on your health, on your relationships, but then you go back to spinning the plate of your purpose, right? And it's while you're spinning one plate, it's normal for another plate to become more shaky or whatever. So, you have to go back to this plate, spin for a bit, and okay, that's good. No, now you go back to your purpose. You must be willing to let these plates become shaky, right? Because when I got serious on Nameless and some people started asking me to hang out, I started saying no. And some of my friends like from high school kept inviting me to things, and I kept saying no, and you probably stopped inviting me because of that. But that's okay, because I have better things to do. And parents putting pressure on you because you follow your own path, it's going to create chaos in your relationships. It's normal, but you have to let the chaos happen. Often, the crazy thing you can do is many problems that are meaningless, you can solve them simply by ignoring them. How crazy is that? So if social media is an issue, right? If people keep messaging you on social media, often you can just stop going on social media and that solves the problem. If you keep getting distracted by your phone, you can just turn off your phone and there you go, it's done. Toxic friends. If you have toxic friends that just want to, trying to get a hold on you, if you just cut them out, you ignore them, problem solved. As simple as that. Yeah, and if you really have an urgent problem, right? Urgent, that cannot be ignored, then you might have to spend a few months or even a few years dealing with that problem. So for example, if you're lonely, that might be something you need to address before you continue, with other things, which is fine. So now that you know the quadrants and all that, but you still don't know what's important, you have trouble sorting things out, don't worry. As we continue through the course, discover your purpose, your values, and your identity, that should be much clearer to you. So in summary, you want to deal with small problems as they arise, and as soon as they arise, try to get rid of them as effectively as you can and learn to say no. Lower level problems stunt your growth, so you must address them before you move on, right? Without obsessing over them too much, right? So lower problems, address them. Do the important, non-urgent things first also. Like your purpose, your passion, your creative work, trying to do these things first. You'll understand chaos is going to be normal when you do that. So expect it, let it be, and sort out the 20% that matters and ditch the 80%, eliminate it, that the thing that doesn't matter. And don't forget, by the way, do the 4 quadrants exercise before you move to the next video. I'm going to put hopefully a link to a worksheet below. If it's not there, do it on your journal. Incredibly important, do that before we go to the next step. I'll see you in the next video. So if you enjoyed this free preview of Quarter Life Mastery, you're gonna love the next video of part 6, explaining to you exactly why pain is necessary for happiness. So I'll see you there.